I've been feeling so down, yeah. Can you tell me why?
So you want to go to PA school. The process seems really long and scary, but I promise you, if you have a goal and go forward with the application process, it can be a lot easier than you think. So keep watching so you can see my personal journey of how I applied to PA school and the things I did to help me. So it was my sophomore year in college. I was first pre-dentistry, pre-pharmacy, and then I decided I hated chemistry. I really failed my first chemistry exam and I really wanted to drop out. My dad told me to stay in until the next drop ad, and I somehow passed my second exam, I think with like a B, and so I just stayed in it and somehow ended the course with a B-. My freshman year, first semester, was a hot mess. I'll make a whole different video about that, but it like really psychologically messed me up. There was one point where I thought I wasn't meant for college, but I've always been someone who's worked really hard. My grades never came easy to me, so I always felt like I had to put extra effort into my studies. Did get an internship after my freshman year at my local doctor's office. I just called, and this is why it's so important just to call, and the worst thing you're gonna hear is a no. So I called my doctor's office and I said, hey, can I come in and be an intern this year? I can bring patients back, take blood pressure. I'm just interested in medicine, but I don't know what I wanna do, whether it was to do nursing or to go to med school. Again, I didn't know what PAs were at that point. And that whole summer, I kind of functioned as a medical assistant, bringing back patients, being the scribe, and I enjoyed it. And in that time, I got to work with a doctor, and he was wonderful. And he told me to look into being a PA. He said that I would fit the role really well. I didn't know what a PA was, and I looked into it and it sounded way too good to be true. Sophomore year, second semester, when I decided I really wanted to be a PA, I saw what you needed to do to apply to PA school. And thankfully, the track I was on, because I was already kind of pre-med, so I saw the courses I took my freshman year and sophomore year, and I really decided to get my basic science courses done, chemistry, biology, organic chemistry. I still get PTSD from that class. And I decided to be serious about it. My undergraduate degree was in dietetic. I learned that for PA school, and I think this goes for med school too, your undergraduate degree isn't that important as long as you get those prereqs done. So I knew that I could get my prereqs done under the umbrella of the dietetics degree at my program, and I was able to enjoy some nutrition classes too and learn how to eat a little healthier, even though I was probably the least healthiest girl in my class. I got really serious. I started to look at programs in my state, and I looked at what the PA program requirements were. So when I was in college, there wasn't a PA advisor. I think it was still somewhat up and coming. There was definitely a pre-med advisor, but there wasn't a PA advisor at my school. My advisor at that time didn't know much about it, but she told me what I could do is look at programs I was interested in and to kind of work backwards. So see what the requirements are, because every PA program has different requirements. And that is true. One program might require abnormal psychology and one program might require statistics. So make sure you look and see if you meet the qualifications to apply to that program and if you need to take more classes. That was really helpful. So I just kind of made a list of what programs I was interested in, what classes I already took, what classes I need to take, and if one program required some weird class that I wasn't interested in taking or it was way too late in my college career to take it, I just didn't apply there. I tried my best to maintain an A and B average, but I think most of my science course I got like a B, B minus, A minus. Like I never got a solid A. My science GPA, if I remember this correctly, was I think a 3.7, but my overall GPA was like a 3.7. I can do a whole different video about my GPA and how my application wasn't perfect. So for PA schools, it's really important to work on those patient care hours because it's a huge part of your application. You need to work or get experience, but when I was applying, it was called patient care hands-on hours. So you have to physically be, touching the patient, getting blood pressure, blood draws, really interacting with the patient. And so there's a lot of different ways to get those hours. I did mine by volunteering at 2 nonprofit clinics near my college. They were great experiences, and so I highly recommend just looking at nonprofit organizations around you and just try to get involved. I worked as a medical scribe one summer at a local Christian clinic, and it's how I got to meet one of the PAs. She was a vascular surgery physician assistant, so I even got to go into the operating room, which was really cool. I also worked as a medical assistant one summer at a nonprofit clinic that was run by solely nurse practitioners, and that was amazing. And so I got to really work with more of an underserved community in those two settings, and it's really opened my eyes even now as a PA. And so I think it's just really important to get those hours and try to, you know, take a lot out of it. I think one of the important things throughout your patient care hours is just organizing your time, and because you need to document how many hours you spent here or there. I think I used just a Google Excel sheet and just wrote out, you know, this clinic, this many hours, and just keep track of it. I think I looked at my hours every month and, you know, kind of estimated how many hours I had. Make sure you have a point person to be the person of contact. So when you're applying to PA school, they can back you up and say, yes, this person was here. So I think I had close to 2,000 hours before I applied. How I got a lot more hours was I took a gap year. I think the gap year term is getting faded out. And so, because it doesn't have a good reputation, it's like you finish college, but you're not in your like career you want to be in. So we'll call it your growth year. So in my growth year, I worked as a medical assistant at an orthopedic clinic, and it was such a great job for me because I got wonderful patient care hours. I was really hands-on, putting on casts, taking off casts, doing split, ordering x-rays, taking blood pressure, doing triage, being a scribe. I worked with surgeon, 3 physician assistants, and it was so great working with those PAs. I still keep in contact with 2 of them. I even got to do one of my rotations as a PA student with one of them in the ER. I think that experience is so invaluable because when you're trying to go to PA school and you see a PA working every single day, you get to see what their role is, and you get to see the hard days and the really great days, and it makes you really decide if you want to be that person and be that role. I also studied for my GREs. I did take my GREs twice. So my first time taking it was right, I think after my junior year. I studied really hard, studied a whole summer. I don't know why I need the whole summer to study for the GREs. I just couldn't focus on it. It just wasn't interesting. Like I felt like I was studying for my SATs, and so now I think some programs have the PA CAT. I don't know much about it. I think the GREs is still the one that most programs take. So again, like I said, look into the program and see what the program requires. I took it the first time and I didn't do so well. And so I was really discouraged. I just kind of studied for it again, my growth year after work. I remember I would go to Barnes & Noble because there's so much traffic going back home. I would just go to Barnes & Noble and just open a GRE book. I was trying to save money, so I would just look at the workbooks and like write down like problems in my notebook. And then I think some days I would just sleep like next to textbooks at Barnes & Noble and then wake up and go home. Like that growth year is so challenging, and like you can get into a really dark place because you're like, what am I doing? Is this even all worth it? So I took the GRE again, I think by like the end of the fall of my growth year, and I did better. I scored better. I put that into my application when I was applying that cycle, because I think you can still put your application in CASPA if you don't have your GRE scores in. Just regarding your GREs and the programs I've talked to and coming out of PA school now, I think it's important to do well, but I don't think it's a make or break it. Some programs I've talked to, they're like, you just have to meet the minimum requirement. What's more important is your overall application. Question that scares everyone is, oh, my GPA isn't well, I didn't do well in organic chemistry, Z, or whatever it may have been. If you didn't get a good grade, take it again, because that just shows programs that you are willing to go through that really tough class again and come out with a better grade. I do think you need a 3.0 to be even considered as an applicant, because when I was in my PA program, I was talking to my director and I had some, good friends who were trying to get into the program, and some friends who were interested in PA. They weren't exactly a 3.0. And my program director just told me, she was like, we can't even look at the applicant if they don't meet at least that 3.0. And so that's not for every program. If you don't have a 3.0 in your overall GPA, and I would say for your science GPA too, to retake those classes, because it's gonna make you into a better candidate and you get a better choice on what program you wanna go to. Okay, so your personal statement. I highly recommend talking about something you're really familiar with, that you know without looking back at your paper. When you go to interview for these PA programs, they are going to ask you about your personal statement, so make sure you know it pretty well. My one advice for people who are working to get their patient care hours as a medical assistant, as a volunteer, or whatever it may be, just to have a journal, just to write down, you know, memorable moment with some patients. Even write down some difficult patient that you dealt with and how you dealt with them, or how you saw the PA or doctor deal with those patients, because you're gonna be asked those same questions when you go interview. So it's good to kind of not just Google answers on how to handle a difficult patient. It's good to just kind of draw from your own memories instead of just having a textbook answer. I talked about something personal to me. So I kind of relayed how I grew up with a single dad and how that shaped me into the student I was and the PA I want to be. I also drew from my encounters in my nonprofit clinics I worked at, drew a lot from lessons from my dad into how I carry that as a medical assistant, kind of drew it all together. I personally love reading personal statements that have like a unified theme. So if you can unify it from the beginning and also kind of tie it together in the end, it's like a bow and a present, and I feel like it just brings it all together. So yeah, my personal statement was something I knew very well. I can talk about it without looking back at my paper, and journal your experiences as you're getting your patient care hours. It can really help you with your application process and even your interview process. So I submitted everything to CASPA, and I thought interviews would be rolling in. I didn't know how it worked. It didn't. I got my first interview, I think, in October, and I interviewed up until April. I think just picking your PA program, just remember that you're interviewing those programs too. So make sure it's the right fit for you. I ultimately just went with the program that was close to my hometown. I got to save a lot of money by living near home. I didn't want to travel too far away, and I loved my cohort. My program was wonderful. My entire class passed with 100% pass rate on the PANT, which is very important. So make sure you look at the PANT's pass rate and that percentage, because that is something that's really important for you to be a PA. You need to pass the PANTs, and ideally the first time. So shadowing a physician assistant, that was the hardest part for me. Like I said, I didn't know what PAs were. I didn't meet a PA. I always had a doctor as my primary care physician. And so when I went back to college and I was really serious about finding more about the PA profession, getting serious about applying in the future, started volunteering at a nonprofit clinic, and there met 2 PAs who volunteered there, and I asked them, I was like, hey, I want to be a PA, can I shadow you sometime in clinic? And I worked with them as their scribe. They gave me their contact. I met a pain PA, a dermatology PA, a vascular PA. And so that's a great way for you to meet people, just getting yourself out there and like going to clinics and volunteering. The other thing I also did was I opened, I think, a Yellow Pages, and I literally called every office near my college town, and I called to see shadow the PA. Had the phone call, the person was like, do you know this person? And I said, no, I just really want to be a PA. I want to see if they take students to shadow. And I got a lot of, what in the world are you doing? Like, no, that's not how this works. But I finally got a call back from one PA, and she didn't know who I was. I didn't send her my application or resume. She said, okay, she can come shadow me. So I don't think there's Yellow Books anymore, but just Google offices around you and shadow PAs and just call, even though it's scary and nerve-wracking to call. That is essentially my application process to apply to PA school. I got in my first round of applying. I know it's really competitive, but I think the earlier you have a game plan and you just write it out, I mean, you have sticky notes all over your door and your study desk, it just kind of motivates you to get it done. I love being a PA. I'm a dermatology physician assistant, and I love that even more. It's a great work-life balance. I'll make a different video about, you know, that in itself. I highly recommend it, and it was a #1 job in the US World Report and News reported the PA profession being the #1 job. PA school was really tough. It kicked my butt. There were times when I wanted to give up, but looking back at it, it's so worth it. It has made me into the PA I am today. Those long hours of studying and not sleeping well and not eating like whatever you can find. So I know the application process is really grueling and it's really stressful. Like I said, I think I was in a really dark place when I was applying. I was just working as a medical assistant, exhausted, trying to study for my GREs and falling asleep at the local Barnes & Noble trying to study. So worth it. I'll do a different video about the interview process, and I think what helped me meet other physician assistants, reach out to them. Don't be scared to call, because the worst thing that can happen is you're gonna get a no, and I got a lot of them. So if you like this video, subscribe, comment, like below, and I'll respond back to you guys. Let me know what else you guys want to see and hear, and thanks for watching.
Down, yeah. I've been feeling so down, yeah. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why?